too.
Yeah.
Gary and I probably be out for lunch tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the personnel section.
I'll make a motion.
Counselor?
Second.
Wilkers?
Okay. Section A is the employment of professional personnel. You'll see that a couple of those are for the next school year under Section A. Section B is the transfer of professional personnel for next school year. Section C, employment of substitute service personnel. Section D, employment of substitute service personnel pending the completion of the West Virginia state requirements and issuance of credentials. Section E, employment of service personnel. Section F, transfer of service personnel as for next school year. Section G, next page, employment of extracurricular personnel, and G2 is for this school year, 2012, 2013. I think that got left off under G2, under the effective date. Section H is a leave of absence. Section I is retirement and or resignation, and it is designated at the end of, under the effective date, whether it's a retirement or a resignation. Any questions?
Any questions? I'll call for a motion for a call for question.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Be an yes vote. That brings us over to comments and concerns. The first thing that we wanted to look at, we have 4 old school buildings that the board still owns and controls. And partly, we've been kind of wanting to see what was going to happen with the school bond, because some of those that could influence the use of some of those, like at Pleasant View, for instance, if you build a new Dying Valley Middle School, it could encompass that too. But anyway, we had to kind of know where that was going before we wanted to take the next step. Others, we need to just make some decisions. But we're talking about the Hamlin Junior High building, the Pleasant View Elementary building, old buildings, of course, the old Aidensville school building, and the old Harts High School building. Those are 4 buildings that we have that the board currently owns and has to deal with. I know, I guess at Harts, we still pay utilities, do we not, Bertie? I don't know if we would at Aidensville or not. Do we still do some at Aidensville? No. So Harts is the only one where we spend on utilities. In addition to that, of course, there's the potential for maintenance. I'm sure that we're having to do some. Where do we do at Harts, Dana?
Harts Middle School needs some maintenance right now. We haven't done a lot of maintenance at the others other than just try to board and keep people out. Of course, the Board of Risk Insurance, they're giving me a real hard time about the liability issues of all these old buildings, and want me to spend money on security systems and things like that to try to make sure that we keep people out, which is almost impossible. But there are huge liability issues.
So are there insurance costs for these above and beyond if we didn't have them?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got utility costs, insurance costs, and then this liability concern. I think that's something that we've had, a lot of us, for a long time, especially places that are kind of off, like Pleasant View, for instance, kind of out by itself. You know, anything can go on there. And ultimately, the Board of Education is responsible for that. You know, we'd be liable for something, for whatever might happen, but the same could be said of any of our schools. So liability is definitely a concern of just maybe people coming in in the evenings and whatever people do when they break in, whether it's vandalism or whatever else may occur. at Harts, the old high school, I think there's more of a concern because apparently the building is being used by people throughout the area, particularly the gymnasium. That's without anybody's approval or anything, it's just being used. But once again, should someone be injured or there be a problem there, the board would be liable. So that's why I think we've said this for a long time, that we need to look at these and decide what we want to do with these now. I did a little research along with Brenda and Dana and everybody else here, just trying to see where we were. And we've come to the conclusion, Brenda will correct me if I'm wrong, that there aren't any reversionary clauses on any of these 4 buildings. Is that correct, Brenda? And she even shared with us at the Pleasant View School, there was even in 2010, there was some issues about who owned the road and this, that, and the other. So the Board of Education owns that road that goes between the football field and Pleasant View School. So some of that came out of it. But through this whole, everything that we saw and what Brenda shared and what I looked at and saw in here, so reversionary clauses are, well, at least as far as we know, there aren't any that apply to these. So all these belong to the board. They don't revert back to any of the property owners that their ancestors have given it to the board back whenever they did it. So we're at the point now of trying to make a decision what we should do. I spoke the other evening with Rebecca Tender and asking her, what the next step would be, and she said that the board would have to declare any of those that we wanted to auction off, because that's what you have to do. You have to auction these off. And, I can look at the code up here if anybody has an interest, but it's very clear in there that that's how the board deals with surplus property. We saw here, of course, it's a little bit different with the school bus because you can go with another governmental entity and not have to go through that auction process. But so we have to decide if we want to do it. So should we want to auction off any of these buildings, we have to declare them as surplus property. And at that point, Diane, I think you've dealt with this in the past as far as actually going through it. But
I put an ad in the paper, run it for a couple weeks, and try to get some press on the building, pictures of it.
And in that, though, we have to, like we know at Hamlin, for instance, and I'm sure all of them have some asbestos, but we know that there's an asbestos issue at Hamlin, the building here at Hamlin. That would have to be shown in that advertisement, right?
Yes, we would let the public know of hazards associated with prints.
Okay, all right. What else is in there typically? I mean, I guess the way she talked, we could set a minimum amount that we would take for the building, but I've also understood that we could just auction them off, and then once the bids came in, we could review each one of them separately and decide if it was okay, or if we wanted to reject it or to go with it. Is
You
that
can
right?
take a high bid at your next meeting following the auction and decide whether you wanted to accept or reject that high bid at that time.
So,
Or you could put a minimum bid, and then you wouldn't necessarily have to accept or reject it. But if we got a bid above the minimum of what you said, we could accept that bid and proceed at that point.
so before you do your advertisement in the paper, you'd have to know which
I
way
need
we
to know
would
that.
do it. So we'd have to identify, assuming we want to do it with any of these buildings you own, those kind of things. We want to just say a certain amount, or we just want to leave it open-ended and see what comes in and then judge them as they come in. But we, like Dana said, all the hazards or whatever factors that a person might have to be aware of would have to be told to them in that advertisement.
Mold would be one we'd want to list at Hamlin Junior High for sure.
What was that, Dana?
Mold.
Oh, well, I mean, you know what it was there, right? You said, so the public would know, or any potential bidder would know, right? Did you have some
Just these sealed bids?
No, be public auction. We'd have a location where we'd have whoever would be interested to come and we just go through the public auction process.
Could you do sealed bids? Is that legal? Would they just give them like a 30 days to submit sealed bids and you open them up?
You could have sealed bids submitted, but I still believe you need to have the public auction at the end of the process. You could have a sealed bid submitted, you could open those bids and start at the highest sealed bid you got. But you still, in my opinion, need to go through the public auction process.
If you look at 18-5-7, that's what covers this. And what Dana just said there, if you just read a portion of it, that the county board may sell, dismantle, remove, or relocate any building and the land on which it is located at public auction after proper notice and on such terms as it orders to the highest responsible bidder. But like your question was, does it have to be a sealed bid or not?
I think you would get more out of it if it wasn't a sealed bid. I think that people would bid against each other.
Well, I was just thinking, if you give them a 30-day to do sealed bids, people from wherever could be
And
more
what you could
access.
do, in my opinion, what you could do is you could ask for sealed bids prior to the public auction. Take the highest sealed bid that you got, and that's where you'd start. And then if there was somebody that showed up at the public auction, then you could bid beyond that. That would be how I would handle that. Rather than just have sealed bids, I'd still go through the public auction process. And you could do both.
Was there a statement that Ms. Tender said something about the board could say they would accept or reject any or all?
Yes.
That language
Yeah,
is in there.
I think that's the way we should word it. Now, you don't have to worry about the minimum bid or anything else. That covers all bases.
That would cover it all, yes.
Maybe
And,
it-
and that's why you see them all, anybody auction off these.
That-
But also, would it be beneficial in your opinion to advertise on the internet?
The only requirement is that we would advertise through the Lincoln Journal, but you could advertise through the Charleston paper, Huntington paper, the internet. However you would choose to advertise in addition to that, you could do whatever you wanted to.
Our legal ads go online anyway on Thursday, so companies that have interest in such projects usually go and grab our legals on Thursday morning from the website, out of county
Yes.
companies.
I don't expect to be too many out-of-county bids.
Now, what
That's
would-
not been the historical,
No.
what's historically happened, no, that's not happened.
Well, what would we do? We'd have a public bidding, and then whoever was the highest bidder, it would just be on the agenda of the next
Yes.
board meeting, whether we accept or reject it.
Yes.
And like Fred said, we write it in such a manner that we'd have that option. I think after, we get to this point and we want to do this, after it was written up with maybe some legal advice, we could all look and see, make sure it was acceptable to us.
Did you talk to the county commission and see if they was?
I haven't yet. I have not yet. I have not made contact.
Okay, so, I'm just throwing that out there for you all. We have to, and once again, the first step before we can do anything is declare them as surplus property. So we have to make decisions here at some point on each one of those four. And then somebody mentioned to me that there's two buildings, but at Guyan Valley, where did I hear that today?
It's the old band room and the cathedral there, and it's pretty well fallen down anyways, isn't it? It's in bad
They're in
shape.
bad shape.
Now, would that be something because I think when you look at these, you have to decide, is this something that somebody might want to use for something else versus is it just going to be torn down?
I believe since it's right in the midst of our property, I believe that that's one you'd want to tear down and keep.
Okay, so that's a demolished
Yes,
item, right?
you'd want to demo that. Now, there's some cost that's unknown on that property. I know the siding has asbestos in it, we'd have to dispose of that first.
Right.
But the roofing issues, I have not done any testing on the roofs. Even the metal roofs, I'd have to take samples of the coating on the metal roof to make sure that it's not. And, but most of the floor tiles that I've sampled have come back negative, so I don't believe there's gonna be, any floor tile turn out to anything. But the roofing issue could still be.
It looks to me like we've got to do it in steps. The first step, deciding which ones we want to publicly try to auction off. And then assume that, maybe there's somewhere that we kept that we don't need, and we want to demolish, then we look at the demolishing part. Because I'm kind of hopeful anyway, I start to say optimistic, but I'll use hope instead, that we generate some monies from some of these sales, maybe to deal with some that we had to demolish, if that's what we end up wanting to do. But I mean, the first step for the board is to decide how we want to, which ones we want to actually have an option on.
I have concerns with Pleasant View where it's right behind Guyan Valley. If you sell that property, I mean, you don't know what's going to end up right behind the school.
There's a law though that it couldn't be anything that might be harmful.
Because they're going
Zoning
to go right by the
regulations.
school, aren't they? The right of way is going to be right against the school going through and.
Yeah, like I said, that roadway in front belongs to the borough board.
Actually, there's a part of the right of way they kept for public use. We wasn't able to completely close that road off.
Right.
We tried.
Yeah, I've got the order here.
Oh, okay. But there's still a certain amount of feet that has to be maintained between the basketball court and the school.
But what you want to, what we'll eventually have to look at in Pleasant View, for instance, we know there's asbestos and it's pretty prevalent. The building's been sitting there for a long time and hadn't been used, so Lord only knows what it's like on the inside.
Right.
So is that one that somebody would have an interest in, or I guess what I'm saying is that if it gets to the point that we have to demolish that, we're probably looking at a lot of money to demolish that building. You know, because first you'd have to deal with the asbestos. As long as this asbestos isn't, what's the term, they
Disturbed.
friable or disturbed.
As long as it's not disturbed, and as long as it's not friable or has a high potential for being disturbed, you can keep it intact and use the building.
So typically, maybe a school like Aytonville might be more in that category where there probably could be used for other purpose without going in and removing it and all. I mean, I'm speculating here.
Yes.
Whereas at Pleasant View,